and welcome to this webinar on assessment strategy under the new NCF. Thank you for your participation in such large numbers. We are delighted to join with you once again on this Viva platform, which now comprises 3 educational publishing brands: Viva Education, Viva Volt, and Amira Books. Our country has the largest youth population in the world. This is one of the factors that are expected to help India become the 3rd largest economy in the world in the near future. Yet, we are struggling with one paradox: unemployment and unemployability on the one hand, and the large-scale export of talent to developed economies on the other. Our demographic dividend can be redeemed for national good only by upgrading education. The National Education Policy of 2020 and the National Curriculum Framework of 2023 give us a clear direction in this matter. They propose major changes in the structure, curriculum, and pedagogy. You as educators and we as publishers are privileged to be part of this historic transformation. Along with teaching and learning, the other major aspect of education that has attracted attention is assessment. As we switch from content-based learning to competency-based training, we need new ways of measuring outcomes. How can teachers form an understanding of these new assessment practices? What are the key action points hidden among the abstractions of bulky policy documents? To take us through the complex world of assessment and make it an accessible subject, we have with us eminent educationist Mr. Ashok Ganguly. Welcome, sir, and thank you for giving us yet another opportunity to listen to you on our Viva platform. Mr. Ashok Ganguly is most widely known as the former chairman of the CBSE. In addition to that, he has formerly held the positions of Additional Director of Projects, Joint Secretary of Education, and Senior Consultant, Non-Formal Education, all with the government of Uttar Pradesh. He has worked closely in formulating and finalizing the National Curriculum Framework of 2005, while he was part of the National Steering Committee and the Central Advisory Board of Education. He also worked in a pivotal role in the preparation and development of textbooks for classes 1 to 12 as a member of the National Monitoring Group. Mr. Ganguly has also chaired the Ganguly Committee set up to formulate the admission criteria and other related issues, including minimum age in nursery classes. Many of us have attended Mr. Ganguly's webinars of the previous years organized by Viva, and we know how valuable his words are when it comes to educational policy and practices. Towards the end of today's session, Mr. Ganguly will have only limited time for queries and questions from the audience. However, that need not stop you from asking questions, because we'll soon have another separate online session with him to address your questions and queries. So you can send all your queries through the chat box. Now I request Mr. Ganguly to commence his session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. I'm really delighted that I'm here once again for this very important webinar. And there's a huge, huge response. And this shows who are participating in this webinar, their commitment to improve the schooling system in India. I really appreciate the Viva group and the Viva boards for organizing this important webinar. and chasing me, convincing me that I must attend this one. Particularly, I'm thankful to Mr. Vinod Vashisht and Mr. Naveen Joshi of the Viva group for allowing me to say something of my experience, of my reading with the National Education Policy and as well as the recently launched National Curriculum Framework. I'm starting with assuming this one, that all the participants who are now listening to me must have at least gone once about the National Education Policy. They may not have much time to go for the National Curriculum Framework. The topic that I will be deliberating today, no doubt, is very abstract. I will like to make it sweet, interesting. There will be a short PowerPoint presentations also, but I will like those who are very serious and those who like to listen very critically. I must ask them to be ready with their paper and pencils also, so that they may not miss any important things. Okay, so for another next an hour or so, I will be requesting your very close and very focused attention. Let me first recapitulate what National Education Policy 2020 says about approach to assessment. It relates to para 4.34 and 4.35 of National Education Policy 2020. It says that assessment must make a shift from summative assessment to formative assessment, from rote memorizational skills to more of competency based, that promotes development and learning for students and must test the higher order thinking skills. It must help teachers, students, and the entire school system. A holistic report card has also to be developed that reflects the achievement of the students in affective, cognitive, and psychomotor domains, and must include self-assessment and peer assessment, progress of the child in project-based learning and inquiry-based learning, and must also include the other assessment tools like quizzes, debates, group work, portfolios, etc. Now, before I embark upon further, we need to clarify one important point. In school education, we often use the 4 terms: test, examination, assessment, and evaluation. Now, we need to be very clear about these 4 terms. See, examination is a technique, and the test is a tool. In the technique, we use the tool. So by examination, we mean mainly covering the scholastic aspects, techniques that we use mainly the written examination and the practical examination. And tools are the questions and the question paper. And when we talk of assessment, it reflects to any process of gathering information about student learning and overall achievement over a period of time that can be interpreted and analyzed. And when you talk of evaluation, evaluation is equal to assessment plus value judgment about growth of the child. That is the difference between the 4 terms that we often use in the school education. So there are 3 cardinal principles of assessment. Any assessment must have the objectivity, the reliability, and the validity of the process. It must have clear objective, the reliability of the score, and the validity of the process. So assessment has mainly 2 purposes. That the measuring achievement of student learning and finding effectiveness of classroom processes in teaching and also teaching materials used for teaching and learning. That is the very purpose of assessment. So educational assessment is very critical in improving the teaching and the learning. Now, when you talk about there are 4 paradigms of assessment. The 4 approaches to assessment. We must know about this. The 4 types of assessment or the 4 paradigms of assessment, 4 approaches to assessment. First, the assessment of learning. That means the summative assessment, the terminal assessment. That is what we call the assessment of learning. The second is assessment for learning. That is what we call the formative assessment. That is a continuous assessment. And in the national curriculum framework, it is a formative assessment that has been given the importance. Third is assessment as learning. It is a self-learning. It is the peer learning. It is a self-assessment. It is the peer assessment. It is the parent assessment. Here, students take the responsibility to generate quality information about their learning and that of others also. That is what we call the assessment as learning. And the 4th one is assessment in learning. The first 3 is very important. In the first, it is the teachers which assesses the students. It is a totally teacher-controlled assessment. But in the second and third, it is the teachers and the students co-construct the assessment. So there is less pressure now. And in the 4th is the students themselves that monitors their learning and assesses their learning. So in the national curriculum framework, it says that the first 3 have to be employed now in coming out with a total assessment process and as well as in reporting the same by creating a holistic report card for our students. So now current challenges in assessment. I think we must need to know about the current challenges in assessment. Now it is based, the current assessment is based on the principles and practices of the 20th century mindset. That means the current assessment is now about 1 century old. It measures the rote learning of the content rather than measuring the achievement of competencies and learning outcomes. So it has thus become mechanical, routinized, and repetitive in nature. That is the current problem about the assessment. Now, in a globalized world order as of today, these situations cannot be continued. Now, we have to train our students to be innovative and creative so that they can become entrepreneur later on in their life. One thing we must know, that the era of invention is over. Today, there is wave of innovations. So in order to succeed in a globalized situation, we have to make our students, our learner, imaginative, innovative, and creative. We have to train and tune our students in such a manner so that they can handle higher order thinking skills, decision-making skills, problem-solving skills, etc., etc. So with this now background in mind, let us now prepare the assessment strategies across stages. So assessment at the foundational stage. That is the first 5 years of schooling. What steps we need to take at the foundational stage. Now, assessment at this stage should not contribute to any additional burden of the child. Yes, it must be a part of the learning process. So at the foundational stage, there should not be any explicit test and examination. It should be strictly no, the test and examination at this stage, particularly up to class 1. I would prefer to take it up to class 2, but for certain reasons, I'm not extending it to up to class 2, because if you have gone through the national education policy, you may be knowing that at the end of grade 3, there will be comprehensive summative assessment of our students by external agency. And it will be a sit-down test, paper pencil test. So we must give certain exposure to our students in class 2 itself by introducing the written or paper pencil test in class 2. Otherwise, up to class 1, there should be no explicit test and examinations. Now, at this stage, teachers must also be aware of the learning outcomes of each activity, each chapter, each lesson plan of each subject at this stage. And assessment should also allow the diversity among learners and in their learning. We should not have a one-size-fits-all system, which is now happening right now, that we don't have any differential assessment system at any stage. The teachers must have the ability at this stage to design different kinds of assessment for the same learning outcome. That is a challenge right now at foundational stage. So now the two important parts of assessment that are appropriate at the foundational stage, the two important tools of assessment that are appropriate at the foundational stage. One is the observations of the child. And second is the analyzing artifacts Analyzing artifact means that the child that they have produced as part of their learning experience over a period of time. Yes, it may be day-to-day activity sheets or the collection of material from field trips, photograph of the children in action with teachers' comments and observations. So I will not take the first one is the observations of the child. It is the most important assessment techniques at this stage. And it can be both structured and or unstructured. See, information about child can be gathered easily in natural settings, in an outside class, through observation. When the child are listening, or when they are playing, or when they are being in silence, or when they are being in nature. We can observe and then accordingly put our comments, observation, notes in the assessment record. Now, some more information, of course, can be gathered, can be collected through structured and planned observation of students' activities and tasks. Now, various techniques while observing the child can be used. Various techniques. It's not. The techniques are debates, elocution, recitation, group work, simple project. Of course, the simple project from class 1 onwards. These are various techniques that we can employ, we can use while making observation of the child. And I will say that it will be better if we use 5-point grading scale in evaluation, in assessment at this stage. However, we can use the marking scales also, of course, by preparing observation criteria or observation schedules and assign a score to those criteria, each criteria out of 5, and then calculate the grade point, then calculate the marks also. That's what we can also do. So now I was talking about the tools to record the observation. The one important tool is about the anecdotal records. And as you know that it is an observed behavior of a student, anecdotal records. Now it is an observation of what children say and do while they are engaged in a particular activity. Now this should be recorded. This should be recorded, and the emphasis should be on recording multiple episodes or what we call anecdotes. That is why it has given the anecdotal record. Now, another important tool, observation tool, is the checklist. It's not a sample checklist. It is actually the checklist. Now, as you know that it is a tool for identifying and recording whether a child has accomplished required learning outcome or not. Now, checklist will always be in a yes/no format. Okay. So it is the collection of information by observing or by questioning. Here, questioning means the oral, or by document analysis. And it should be always in the yes or no format. I'm giving you the sample checklist about actually for observing skills in language and literacy. I can give you that actually one example so that it becomes very clear to all of you. So I'm talking about the language and literacy where I'm going to assess the listening and the speaking. I'm giving a sample about the listening and the speaking skills. So we must know whether the child listens with attention to conversation and stories. Yes, no. Whether the child can recite or repeats small poems, action songs, participate in music and rhythmic activities? Yes, no. Whether the child is able to follow 2 or 3 step instructions? Yes, no. Whether the child responds to questions through sentences used appropriately? Yes, no. Whether the child uses appropriate vocabulary and speaks complete sentences about an idea, object, picture, experience? Yes, no. So this is a checklist that we can do it, and similar things I think we can also make assessment in other areas of language, say reading and the writing skills, also in mathematics, and also in world around us, that is the social and the natural world. And we can make a quarterly report by doing this checklist and as well as the anecdotal records, Q1, Q2, Q3. We can have even Q4 also, if it is possibility, but I think 3-quarter assessment is sufficient. Now, I must tell one thing, that observation as a tool has various advantages. Yes. First, we can recognize and identify the individual child on a continuing basis at different points of time. Over time, a pattern of interests, aptitudes emerge, creating a comprehensive picture, the child's learning and the development. But it has certain limitations. Yes, that we need to take good care of. First, jumping to conclusions on one or few observations. That should not be. That's one. Second, the skill of the teacher as observer, determining what is being observed. That's very important, that the skill of the teacher as an observer. And the lack of sensitivity and objectivity in the way the observation is being done. But I must tell you one thing, that these are all secondary issues. And secondary issues can be easily overcome, provided we train and empower our teachers regularly and appropriately and adequately what to observe, how to observe, and when to observe. Now, besides observation, we can use some other techniques also at this stage. There are 2 techniques. One is the assignments and another is the worksheets. Okay. Now, what is the assignments? You are already aware. The theme-based tasks to be completed as a classwork or as a homework. This is what we call the assignments. And it can be both open-ended as well as structured. Now, assignment has several advantages. Yes, creativity can be promoted. Yes, encouraging students to go beyond the textbooks. Group work can be encouraged. And this is what the essence of our national education policy also. Now, when you talk of the assignments, it provides opportunity to other learners, to our students, to search, to engage themselves, and to search for information. 2E. The students are engaging themselves, engage, and also exploring, search for information, engage and explore. And then articulate their ideas, explain. That is 3rd E. And then construct their ideas and articulate then their ideas also. So explain and then elaborate or extend through written, spoken, or the visual expressions. That is what is the assignment actually. And then we can evaluate. So here the 5E, all the 5E model, the classic 5E model of classroom curriculum dynamics are being employed here. Engage, explore, explain, elaborate or extend, and evaluate. So through assignments, we can do wonder if we properly make evaluations. But the assignment should be such that it can be handled by the students on their own. That we need to take good care of. The second is the worksheets. The worksheets is different from the assignment. This is a scholastic task that the children perform and respond in written form. But it must be done within the classroom. Yes. So it is an effective assessment techniques for our teachers, particularly in class 1 and in class 2. So students' responses in worksheets can give the teacher clear understanding of the learning level of the child. So this is about the observation. What are the tools we need to take good care of? The second important thing that I have already informed earlier to you about the analyzing the artifacts. Yes, analyzing the artifact. As you already explained, that an artifact in an early childhood classroom refers to an object or things created by a child during the teaching learning experience, teaching learning process. And you know that it provides a rich source of information about a child's strengths and the abilities. In order to ensure this, we have to keep portfolio of every student's work over a period of time. So portfolio is another technique that we are going to employ while analyzing the artifacts produced by the child. And I told you the artifacts are nothing but day-to-day activity sheets, collection of materials from the field trips, or even the photograph of the children in action. But with teachers' comments and observation notes, it provides comprehensive information of a child's learning development and progress. And again, I'm repeating that quarterly assessment is preferred at this stage. And of course, a 5-point grading scales I will prefer at the foundational stage. Now, with this foundation is over, now I'm talking about the assessment at preparatory stage. That is class 3 to class 5. That is the preparatory stage as per the new national education policy. Now, at this stage, a robust system of formative assessment is required to track progress of individual student. That's important. Progress of individual student. That means that every child is important. That every child must learn. Now, at this stage, yes, children must have better understanding, better comprehension, and must also be aware of the competencies that they need to have, they need to attain. The teachers also must be aware of the learning outcomes and the competencies to be achieved at every level, every class of the preparatory stage. The variety of assessment techniques or methods can be used at this stage. Yes, a variety of assessment methods can be used at this stage. There can be formal written test at this stage, yes. Correcting the worksheet must be given regularly, correcting it and evaluating it also periodically. Portfolios can be used to capture student progress holistically. And then there will be project work also, which needs correction, which needs evaluation. And there must be peer assessment and self-assessment at this stage to monitor the trajectory of the students' own learning. So these are the things I think we need to have at the preparatory stage. There must be also periodic summative assessment. Yes. So there must be periodic summative assessment also. And at the end of preparatory stage, this means that at grade 5, we'll be having a comprehensive summative assessment at the end of grade 5 by an external agency. This is what we call census examination. We'll be having the same at grade 3 also. Grade 3 also by an external agency. Now, at the preparatory level, I think questions on HOTS, that is higher order thinking skill, must be slowly introduced, gradually introduced in grade 4. And we must be very clear the ultimate competency that we need to have at the end of preparatory stage. That is, we need to develop fluency in literacy and numeracy, and the capability to explore the natural and the social world around us. That is the ultimate competency we need to have. Look, at the preparatory stage also, we need to evaluate the arts education, the physical education, and as well as the vocational awareness program at this level. As you know, the arts education and the physical education has already become the part of curriculum activity. Of course, we will be having in grading system the evaluations of the arts education and physical education. I will take it up a little bit in detail when we will come to discuss about at the middle stage. About the vocational education, at this stage, we will be having the vocational awareness program or the pre-vocational capacities. And it also needs to be appropriately evaluated. I think we need to go in great detail when everything about the vocational education becomes clear. Now, at the preparatory level, each academic session must have 2 terms. Okay. And each terms we need to have 2 formative assessment and 1 summative assessment. Yes. So in an academic year, we will be having the 4 formative assessments and 2 summative assessments. You can make little bit adjustment also as per your requirements, but this is the thing that we can do it very comfortably also. And in the formative assessments, we need to use the multiple tools and not just a single tool. We need to use the multiple tools for each formative assessment. And I have already, as said earlier, now these multiple tools can be the debates, hands-on activities, project work, quizzes, assignment, worksheets, class notes, so on and so forth actually. But these activities are to be done within class and school time only. Paper pencil test as one of the tools can be used in formative assessment. But as it is a preparatory stage, I will prefer that the paper pencil test must be used only once in each term. If in each term we have 2 formative assessment, so if paper pencil test is used in FA1, then FA2, we can avoid the paper pencil test so that other tools can be accommodated. Because in order to have a proper assessment and holistic development, we need to have a multiple tools, at least in the formative assessment. Because the summative assessment, there will be sit-down test only the paper pencil test only. Now, each formative assessment, yes. Now, each formative assessment can have a weightage of 10%, and each summative assessment can have a weightage of 30%. So the final results will be declared by combining a 40% of formative assessment with 60% of summative assessment. This is one model I'm giving before you, actually. Now, I'm giving, I think if I give an example, the things will be much more clear. What you talk about the multiple tools in the formative assessment. And so let us give an example about the formative assessment. So FA1. I have created a 100-point matrix, 100 scale matrix I have created. Yes, I'm using as one of the tool, the paper pencil test, the written test, that I have allotted 50 marks. And other tools that I am now employing in the FA1, formative assessment 1, assignments, 20 marks, classwork, 10 marks, group work, 10 marks, speech, communication, or classwork, 10 marks. So it gives a complete 100 marks matrix. And if a child has got 73 out of 100, then I think 10% of it will be taken in the FA1. So child has got 7.3. That is one example I'm giving actually in FA1. But when you conduct the FA2, I will not be at the prep stage. I will not be having this paper pencil test, the written test. I will be using the other tools also. But I will create a 100-point matrix. And then after evaluating the child in 100-point matrix, 100-score matrix, I will take the 10% of it, then add it as FA2 achievement. Now, what are the tools that we need to employ in language and literacy, in mathematics, in social science, or in science? We have to use the multiple tools and different tools also. I'm giving you this one example about this. Yes, the various multiple tools in formative assessment. For languages, we can have oral, listening, written assignments, debates or recitation, group work, peer work, information gathering, classworks. These are the tools. We need not to use all these tools actually in one formative assessment. We'll take 2 to 3, 4 at the most. There will be written test also in FA1. FA2, there will not be any written test, but we can use the other tools also. Similarly, for mathematics, we can have problem solving, we can have MCQs, data handling, group projects, peer assessment, math lab activities, classwork. These are the tools we can take in mathematics. And then in science, we can have the written assignments. We can have MCQs again. MCQs, that worksheet will be given to the children to write in the classroom itself, and they will write it and then we will evaluate it actually. Then group work, some research, some experimental, field trips, model making, class responses. These are the multiple tools we need to employ in the formative assessment of the child. And as I already said, that there will be 2 terms in an academic session, and each term you can have 2 formative tests and 1 summative test. For social sciences, we can have the written assignments, we can have the group work, that is projects and presentation, we can have the models and charts, research, classwork, and field trips. So this is about the various multiple tools that we need to employ when we are doing the formative assessment. But the summative assessment will be of only sit down or the paper pencil or the written test. And where each summative assessment will be taking the 30% of the things actually, making the entire assessment in a 100-point scales. So this is about the techniques that we are going to use for assessment at the preparatory stage. Now the assessment at the middle stage. What are the things that middle stage? That is at the new 6 to 8. That is what we call now middle stage now. Now, assessment at the middle stage will be a natural extension of the prep stage. Yes, will be extended further. As you know that the curriculum process at this level is focused on understanding, hands-on activities. There are group work at this level, project-based learning, and the inquiry-based learning. So assessment has to be, again, continuous, comprehensive, and the competency-based. There's one new term I'm using, that is a competency-based assessment now. At this stage also, I think the creativity has to be promoted. Yes, creative assignments. Creativity has to be promoted. Encouraging students to go beyond the textbooks. More group work, analysis, and reflections. So we need to give importance to the creative work also, and various formative assessment techniques we can use at this level. Projects, debates, presentations, experiments, investigations, role plays, journals, portfolios can be used at the middle stage when we are doing the formative assessment to assess learning. Yes, we need to have a regular summative assessment also at this stage and at logical intervals. Yes, we can have it year end, we can have it term end, we can have even in quarter end also. And I will prefer, if need be, a summative assessment at the end of learning cycle also. But too much of summative assessment may not be good for our children at this level. But we can have term end, year end, and if need be, at quarter end also. And a regular summative assessment at this stage must include, yes, the design of the summative assessment must include the MCQs, yes, short answer and very short answer type questions, long answer type questions, so that the selective learning is discouraged. Today's students are going for the selective learning. So we need to discourage the selective study at this level. So at the middle stage, there will be variety of oral and written tests, practical tests, assessment of projects, and all this should be done very carefully, methodically, and comprehensively. So the formative and the summative assessment must be continued at the middle stage, and it must be strengthened, as well as the self-assessment and peer assessment, because we have to develop a holistic report card, including the self-assessment and the peer assessment also. Now, at the middle stage, in the formative assessment, the paper pencil test or the written test can be used in each cycle of formative assessment, because NEP clearly says that here at this stage, we have to look to the various competencies in each subject. So that is possible when we are employing as one of the two. Multiple tools will be used, but in each cycle of formative assessment, we can use the paper pencil test actually. And the summative assessment must be divided into two parts. Yes, 1 hour of objective test and the 2 hour of descriptive test. The design of the summative assessment needs to be changed at the middle stage also. And I will also prefer that the higher order thinkings in thoughts in summative assessment now must be included at this level, making it 20% in class 6 and gradually increasing into 30% in class 8. So that we need to see in designing. Of course, it will be all school-based assessment, but in designing the question paper in summative assessment, we need to ensure that all the questions should not be from recall or the knowledge part. Let there be 30% of the questions also based on hearts in class 8. Also, I will not prefer 30% in class 6. We can gradually increase actually. Now, at the middle stage, the one important thing that needs to be taken good care of is about the evaluation in arts education, physical educations, and the vocational educations. Now, the evolutions of art education, art education, from middle stage onwards has to be different from what we are having in regular exams. Yes, it has to be different, the arts education, both arts education as well as the physical education. Now, it must first of all start with the mantra, with the belief, with the axiom that all children are creative and not few. That's the axiom, that is the mantra, that is the belief that we need to have it. Now, the assessment in arts education definitely must take into account the portfolios of students' art-making process and the students' creative thinking process. Yes. All students need to have an individual folder of artwork, of their artwork. All students at this level, individual folder of their art. We can even maintain the digital folder also in the school's computer. Yes, we can have a digital folder also. Now, their artwork can be exhibited in the classroom itself. Yes, we can do that. And students can be asked to express and write about their experience, about the process, about the difficulties they had, and about the innovative measures. They will write, they will express. That we can. That is the evolution of the arts part. Similar process can be adopted in music, dance, theater, by forming groups. Yeah, the group performance will be given the importance. Now, assessment in the physical education. The physical education now at this level, it can be done through observation of students during field activities, drills, and games. We can have the written test also, can be used to assess specific competencies, the rules and regulations of the games, the knowledge of the games and the tournaments. We can have a small written test also. Now, other tools that may be needed for evaluating, for assessing the physical education include document analysis maintained by teachers, journals maintained by students, self-assessment is very important now as physical, and also Viva. So that is about the physical education, something different from the regular test, regular assessment. Now, assessment in vocational education is little bit different also. You know that the vocational activities are all based on demonstrative performance. They have to do hands-on activities. They have to give demonstration. They need to have a practice session. Of course, I know that in secondary stage, when we discuss about the vocational education has to be evaluated on a completely different pattern based on NSQF qualification, National Skills Qualification Framework. It has a 10 stages of skills, and 1 and 2 has to be achieved at the secondary level, and 3 and 4 has to be achieved at the senior secondary or the grade 11 and grade 12. But at the middle stage, actually, the students can be, of course, assessed in vocational educations by demonstration, by having practice session. Written test can also be used. We can do it to find about the capacities of our students regarding conceptualizations and the planning part. Portfolios of the students can also be maintained. Yes, we can have the oral test also. Then portfolios will be important, the Viva also. Teacher observation will also be important to evaluate the vocational education. And students can also be asked to express their experience about the vocation that they are going through written self-reports own assessment, reflection, and the Viva procedure. So that is about the evaluation assessment in arts education, physical educations, and the vocational educations. Now, self-assessment, peer assessment. This is what I have used very frequently. But many teachers and principals also ask me how we can ensure the self-assessment at this level. But both these have to be included now in the assessment format, because we have to make a holistic report card. Now, self-assessment can be done. Now, in this technique, questionnaires can be sent to the students in each term. Cannot be done every quarter, every month. The questionnaires can be sent to the students every term to express their likes, their dislikes, their fears, their hopes, ideas, any difficulty they are facing, and students will give the responses on those questionnaires. And of course, they will also grade it themselves on a 5-point critique. That is a self-evaluation. And we need to maintain portfolios, can be maintained, to provide evidence of the students' self-assessment. Similarly, the peer assessment is also excellent for assessing in team and group-based activities, social projects, and peer-related behavior. Here, the students will assess the other students, not of himself or herself. Okay. And again, it can be incorporated into portfolio. Yes, to provide evidence of the students' social life skills and about the peer assessment. So these are the two important. We can have the parent assessment also. Yes, I think we can develop that system also. But if you can begin first with the self-assessment and peer assessment, develop necessary competency about that, and then we can extend it further to have the parental assessment also. Now, assessment in core scholastic areas. So these terms not been used now in the national education policy and neither in the national curriculum framework, because the core scholastic areas like the physical education, which includes the sports and games, and the arts educations, which includes music, theater, dance, drama, are part of now curricular activities. So many co-curricular areas and their associated values have already been included in the curriculum assessment process. However, in order to have a holistic development, ensure holistic development, students can be additionally assessed in such core scholastic areas like life skills education. Yes, that has been done, many school life education. In club activities, we can do that actually during the middle stage and the secondary stage. Yes, attitudes and the values also. But you know that when we are doing the evaluations in arts education, physical education, vocational education, values and attitudes are already included in that. Disposition already included in that. And we are evaluating the child. So we may not be did separately to go for the attitudes and values, but definitely about the life skills education and the club activities, we can make further assessment and put them students on a 5-point grading at the middle stage and 9-point grading at the secondary stage. Now, these co-curricular activities, the life skills part, the club activities part, can be assessed through periodic observation, number one, rating at the end of term, twice we can have the rating, and of course the annual assessment also. And again, at the middle stage in such co-curricular areas, I will be preferring a 5-point grading systems. We can create some rubrics in each such life skills activities, allot marks out of 5, and then calculate the grade point average. Well, now, assessment at secondary stage. Now, looking into the greater subject depth at this stage, yes, regular formative assessments should be effectively practiced at the secondary stage also. It is a 4 years of integrated curriculum. Secondary stage, not 2+2. Simultaneously, the summative assessment should be conducted. Yes, for recording students' learning against competencies. And self-assessment must play key role in student learning at this stage. So formative assessment at the secondary stage, yes, like in the middle stage, must be continued with multiple tools. But the design of the summative assessment at this stage needs change. Yes. It must include the case-based questions, understanding, comprehending paragraphs, and essay type questions to ensure assessment of competencies. That's very important. And of course, questions and activities on creativity are to be encouraged at this stage. So formative assessment will be continued as in the middle stage, but the design of the summative, the blueprint and design of the question paper, the summative assessment needs change, and we must include the paragraphs type, comprehension, that will be, I think, must be added. And as you may be aware, that in grade 9 and 10, now the students need to appear in 3 languages and 7 other subjects. And out of this, art education, physical education, and the vocational education will be locally assessed through external examiners. Meaning thereby, the question papers will be framed by the respective board, by the respective board, but the examination will be conducted at the local level. There it will be locally assessed also, but there will be a presence of external examiner. And of course, in other 7 subjects, it will be an external examination, but it is still not clear because board has to come out with their report also how the pass-fail criteria will be decided in the grade 10 board examination. I think that needs to come actually later on. Similarly, in grade 11 and 12, now the students will take 2 languages. Yes. And the 4 other subjects with the optional 5th subject also. So many students now will be taking up the 7 subject combination in grade 11 and 12. And all will be externally evaluated. And here it is also not clear how the pass-fail criteria will be decided by the respective board. Well, so now we have to change the formative assessment and the summative assessment at secondary stage according. To begin with, to start with, we can continue to have 4 formative and 2 summative assessment at the secondary stage. But in grade 11 and 12, and no, in grade 10 and 12, where there will be board examination, I think we can accordingly modify or reduce the formative and the school-based assessment so that the required learning hour in each subject is not lost, because each subject needs a minimum learning hour. So we need to see that we should not have too much of formative or the summative assessment in grade 10 and grade 12, so that the required learning hour in each subject may not happen. Now in secondary stage, we need to develop again a holistic report card for school-based assessment. Yes, school-based assessment. You need to develop a holistic report card, particularly in class 9th and class 11, mentioning assessment of the students in the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domain. And here at this stage, if you want to evaluate in some other co-curricular activities that we have mentioned at the middle stage, like life skills education, club activities, then we can have a 9-point grading scales at this level. So, to conclude, I think we must now need to change our thought process. We must need to change our thought process to change the world outside and to change our assessment system at the school stage level. We need to change in our mindset, skill set, and the heart set. The way we have been taught and examined, same thing now cannot be repeated when we are evaluating the children who have taken birth in the 21st century. Now, assessment at the foundational stage must be relied upon observation and, of course, analyzing the artifacts, using other tools like assignments, worksheets, anecdotal record, checklists. And of course, assessment will be preferred in grading at this level. At the prep stage, a robust and structured formative assessment must be employed, must be used with multiple tools in each subject. Formative assessment must be continued at the middle stage and the secondary stage. And of course, summative assessment must be strengthened so that we can measure the competencies in each subject. All the three approaches to assessment, that is assessment for learning, assessment of learning, and assessment as learning, must be employed even at the school-based assessment also at various stages. Then a holistic report card, assessment report card, must be developed, which must take into account the cognitive, affective, and the psychomotor domains. Now, while developing, many schools have already developed a holistic report card. I will say that it should be put into 3-4 segments separately. Yes, one segment, of course, must for the cognitive domain, that is a scholastic aspect. Another segment should be for the non-scholastic areas like arts and vocational education, values and dispositions. We can have a second segment. The third segment can be of the post-scholastic areas related to the physical education, the psychomotor domains. And the fourth segment could be of that of self-assessment, peer assessment, parental assessment, along with the students' details. One thing I must tell you, whatever I have said this, that so many things that we have used, not the jargon, but I have used some anecdotal records, worksheets, demonstrations, projects. If you look into the history of our assessment system, it's not absolutely new. Earlier, we used to have 4 types of tests: written test, oral tests, practical tests, and the open book tests. Now, if you look at critically, yes, all the tools and techniques are already included in these 4 categories. For example, recitation, elocution, debates, discussions are all come under the oral test category. Similarly, artifacts, experiments, projects, portfolios, document analysis, demonstration comes under the practical test category. So I will say that these are not new things. Only thing that you need to little bit fine-tune your mindset. And definitely, if you can do that, you can create wonders by creating an assessment system that will definitely improve not only our teaching and learning process, but also, I think, our students will be put on a very higher platform. Our students will be of global standard. So at the end, it's in Hindi, because I belong to the Hindi area. I will say that सफर तो लंबी है, कठिन भी है, धूप भी होगी, तो चलने के लिए हमें तैयार होना होगा. लेट अस तैयार हो. निदा फाजिल की एक फेमस कोटेशन है, उसको मैंने मॉडिफाई किया है. आई मॉडिफाइड इन दैट वन. क्योंकि हमें तैयार होना पड़ा चलने के, क्योंकि किसी के वास्ते जो है हमारे सफर का उद्देश्य जो है नहीं बदल सकता है. यस, हमें अपने आप को खुद ही बदलना होगा सफर में बने रहने की. Entire things, life is a journey. So we have to modify ourselves in our thinking process, in our thought process, so that we can fine-tune our assessment system, even our pedagogical approach also, so that the various provisions of the national education policy and the provision of the national curriculum framework is implemented appropriately. And lastly, before going, I will say, National Curriculum Framework, you may be knowing, it's a 600-page document. If you look at it, yes, you will be scared. Oh, this is such voluminous. But read it on a different thinking. Pedagogical approach, you first read it. Then go for the content. Then go for the assessment framework. These are small. Go only first for the part A of the documents. And this is of only, I think, 80 to 90 pages. Once you finish the part A, then you can go for part B, part C, part D. That's the way we need to go to the National Curriculum Framework also. Thank you for listening. I would like to have some questions from your side, and I will definitely get to know about some other queries which I can discuss later on, sometimes by grouping the questions that you will be raising subsequent. Thank you. Sir, thank you for. My question would not be. That's the question. Whether the parents' assessment will not be biased. That's a beautiful question actually raised by even the self-assessment or the peer assessment also. But of course, the parental assessment will be expecting that every parent will give their kids the top grade. That is expected also, in order to motivate their kids, in order to motivate their child. But we will be raising some other issues also. We will be sending questionnaire to the parents, not only to grade their kids accordingly, but we will ask certain questions which will help us. Because when we will be asking for self-assessment also, the students will be raising some fears, some things about that. So I think we can then correlate the things, the responses of the students and the responses of the parents also. We'll keep all these things in our portfolio and accordingly guide, counsel the concerned, the students also. And of course, in the parent-teachers meeting, we can raise it actually on a one-to-one basis. So this is we are all expecting that it will be all biased. But I think the point that you have raised is correct, but these are of secondary importance. The primary importance that we need to have certain feedback, some feedback from students and from their parent also, so that some communication actually goes on. Is it possible to construct? Yes, why not? Of course, yes. Is it possible to construct the strategies? See,
yes, sir. I would like to.
Whatever things I have
sir?
discussed, whether that's a prep stage or the middle stage, the important thing that every child is important for us. And one size fits all system is going on since independence. Better that if we can have a differential assessment system, taking into care of different needs of the every learner. It may not be possible for every student, but can we make a grouping? Can in every class, a class of 40 be put into 4 or 5 groups, and they will maybe differentially assess, or you can have 3 groups also, or at least for those special differential abilities students, can we have a differential assessment system at the prep stage, at the middle stage? Some schools are doing exceedingly good work. I have seen in my close eye actually. We can do that, provided the only thing that you believe that this is possible. This is possible. Of course, we need to, मैंने आपसे सीखा कि सफर तो कठिन है, but then we need to take that pains in order to make it a success. What is the 9-point grading scale? Okay, that's fine. We can have it anything, A1, A2, B1, B2. Of course, the top one is putting excellent, outstanding, then the very good, then the good. That's what we can define. It is up to you. We do not want to have any prescriptive model actually. We are just suggesting 5-point scaling. Of course, the A will be outstanding. The last one will be the poor, but we will not prefer poor grading at the prep stage and the middle stage. But secondary stage, we can have a 9-point grading. We can start, we can have a A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2, D. Last two will not be, one will be average, one will be poor. That we can do that. So it is up to you. We can make it a prescriptive model, but I don't believe any top-down prescriptive model approach. We need to have a bottom-up approach because you are much more creative. You are already at the border. So I've just given a hint to you that because at secondary stage, the breadth should be much. It should not be compressed. So that's why I prefer that secondary stage we can have a 9-point grading scale, but at prep and middle stage we can continue with a 5-point grading scale.
Excuse me, sir. Good evening, sir.
Yes.
Sir,
Yes,
sir,
sir.
my question is there any chance of rationalization of syllabus? Because currently teachers are in a pressure of completion of syllabus always. So implementing these things, or there is a chance of change of the books, because after NCF 2005 there was sea change in the books and curriculum. Now again there is a chance of changes of books, or it will be continued.
That's a good thing you have raised. Yes, I do agree. All these things that I have discussed, the creativity, the imagination, the innovation cannot happen if we have that much of pressure of syllabus and the courses. 2-3 things
Yes,
I must tell you. 2 things I must tell you. Yes, syllabus is being now finalized now. Is being finalized. NCERT and the committee has already been constituted, and they are now making syllabus from grade 3 to grade 12. After that, the textbooks writing will happen. But I think I must tell you one thing, that we need to have a proper curriculum planning also at the beginning of the academic session. It may not be possible with the amount of things that you need to do in an academic session, that all the chapters, all the lesson plan has to be completed only in offline mode. So what I will prefer, can we have a curriculum planning? Of course, curriculum now being divided into 32 weeks of WTP, that's the weekly teaching plan. But what I'm saying in curriculum planning, can the curriculum be divided into 3 parts? First, the portion of the curriculum which can only be taken in an offline mode, in a classroom process, because otherwise students cannot understand that. Second, portion of the curriculum which can be completed in a project-based. Let the 2-3 chapters are there. If a student do the projects, they can complete those courses. And the third, the portion of the curriculum which can be completed in a blended online mode. Not so. I will prefer a proper curriculum planning. If we can do it, we can complete the courses and also complete the creativity, imagination. Another thing, it may not be possible to do this creative work, imagination, innovative work every day. Can we do once in a week? Can we do it once in a fortnight? Can you do it once in a month in each subject? That is sufficient. What is happening right now? It is not at all happening. So I think if we do have, your minds are excellent. Only thing that if we need to have a little bit of change in our mindset, we can accomplish it, we can do it. And as I have already said, I've seen the wonderful things are happening in our schools in India.
Hello, sir.
Thank you,
My
sir. Thank you
question
so
is,
much.
sir, will you please explain assessment as learning and assessment for learning? A little bit difference. I'm sometimes confused in that.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Yes, there are 4 types of assessment, actually 4 approaches to assessment. As I have said, the assessment of learning is, of course, the summative assessment. Assessment for learning is a continuous assessment. It is a formative assessment. So that is for assessment for learning. And why you are saying assessment for learning? Because after doing this assessment, whether the teachers get to know whether this classroom processes is going on appropriately, whether the students are assimilating those things or not. If not, then teachers can change the teaching style. Teachers can change the style of the teaching learning process. That is what is called assessment for learning. But assessment as learning is the thing where the students take the responsibility to generate quality information about their own learning and as well as that of others. Yet students take the responsibility. That is why I'm taking assessment as learning. And assessment is learning is a new jargon that we are using of late. It is nothing. Here the students monitors their own learning and assesses themselves. And if they find that it's not going all smoothly, they will change their teaching style. They will change their how to go for further, actually go for extended reading. So assessment as learning and assessment for learning, there's a difference between these two. One is for the formative assessment, where the teachers get to know whether the learning style is being properly assimilated by the students or not. But assessment as learning is nothing but pure self-learning, pure peer learning, and it includes also the parents' assessment also.
Okay, sir. Does that mean that self-assessment and peer assessment will be considered as assessment as learning?
Yes, true.
Okay.
That's
Thank you, sir. Thank you for
Yes.
clearing my concept.
Yeah.
Thank you.
किसी ने पूछा नहीं? देखिए, आप अगर नेशनल करिकुलम फ्रेमवर्क देखें, मैं चाहूंगा कि आप पढ़ें डिजाइन पार्ट को, पार्ट ए को आप पढ़ें। नहीं, कोई किसी लैंग्वेज की अनिवार्यता नहीं की गई है। किसी ने पूछा कि हिंदी क्या अनिवार्य लैंग्वेज के रूप में पढ़ाई जाएगी? नहीं, किसी लैंग्वेज को अनिवार्य नहीं किया गया है। इसमें ही केवल कहा गया 11th-12th में कि देयर विल बी 2 लैंग्वेजेस एंड 1 लैंग्वेज विल बी ऑफ नेटिव ऑफ इंडिया। इंडिया के, फॉर एग्जांपल, वन कैन टेक इवन द तमिल एंड एज हिंदी as the 2 languages. So पहले था कि English was almost become a compulsory. Now they say out of the 2 languages, 1 language must be of native to India. यही compulsory है. Otherwise, no specific language now is now compulsory at any level. Okay, now I think आप बोलो. One thing I must add before you ask some more questions. I will people request you. You send the questionnaires to these people. Actually, they will group it into 9 or 10 or the 12 different groups. Then we can answer, I think, in some other webinar later on, say in a month's time or so. Adona.
Sir, my question, I teach grade 1. There are different childs. Some are very intelligent. Some children are intelligent in maths. Some are doing very good in Hindi, and the other one is going very good in EVS. And the very intelligent children who are doing very good in all the subjects. So there is a child who is doing good in maths and not doing good in other subjects. So I want some help for that child. He takes interest in maths. He gives answer also for maths, But for English, he does not write. Even nowadays, we are having examinations conducted, sometimes in test also. He does not write. He does not like to write.
Which class?
So grade 1. Sir, even I,
That's the beauty of things. And that's why you are fortunate that you are taking up this challenge at that level, actually. It's a challenging
sir.
task, I must agree.
Yes, sir. Yes,
I
sir.
wish that. But then one thing I must tell you, we must all believe that every child is talented. But the
Yes.
intensity of talent may vary from individual to individual. Not every child can take birth with the left brain skills. There are hundreds and thousands of kids taking birth with the right brain skills.
Yes.
Right brain skill child may not be good in logical competencies, may not be good in linguistics, but may be good in various other subjects. So this shows that that child that you are handling right now, his logical competency will be extraordinarily good. But it will be very difficult, because unless and until he learns the language part, he may not be in a position to understand the other subjects later on in the study. So you have to take certain innovative measures, how to put him in any of the languages. If we're not good in English, is he good in his mother tongue or state languages? You need to find it out. Say, for example, I don't know which place you are in, but let us find it out.
So I'm UP, Meerut.
UP, तो आप हिंदी देखो ना. हिंदी
Yes,
में he's
for
speaking.
that he is very good in Hindi speaking.
Bas,
He is
that's
very
right.
good in swimming. He does a very good
That's
swimming
very
also.
good. The child, now I must tell you, now problem is solved. Problem is solved because English is not the language that he is or she is communicating at their home also. I was also not very good in English the beginning of my education when I was in the Hindi medium schools. Okay, but the child will, I'm definitely telling you that if he's good in one language, sufficient job is done. But only thing that it is your innovations, your imagination, your help, your talent that will help that child later on in a year or two, how he takes interest in English language also. But don't be so much worried about that he or she is not good in English or in any particular subject. If he's very good in mathematics, very good in Hindi, job is done. He will be a talented children later on, I'm telling you. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. There is a question actually. Is there a format for the assessment to be held by external agencies? There's a question. I think these are being now formulated. There will be actually comprehensive summative assessment at grade 3, grade 5, and grade 8. And most probably it will be conducted by some external agencies, say by respective SCRT, by the respective state, or by some other agencies actually. Parak is being constituted, and I think Parak may also take decisions about this assessment in grade 3, grade 5, and grade 8. So we need to wait for some more time actually. We're very clear about the census examination that will be held at grade 3, grade 5, and the grade 8. But there will be no pass-fail criteria in such assessment. These assessments will be there simply to know how the learning of that teaching learning is going on those particular schools. It's over to Naveen Joshi.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Respected principals, educators, and teaching faculty members associated with various schools across the country. I would take this opportunity to thank you all for taking a precious time of your busy schedule to attend this webinar on assessment strategy under the new NCF, being organized by us on behalf of Viva Group. It's a privilege to have you sharing this problem with us and taking part in this extremely significant presentation by none other than Mr. Ashok Ganguly ji, whose towering stature as an educationist needs no formal introduction. As all of you know, the NCF for foundational stage and school education are elaborate and lengthy documents containing as many as 356 pages and 600 pages respectively, containing as many as 1,000, more than 1,000 pages. The enormous length of the NCFs can be attributed to the details of assessment covering most of them. Reading, understanding, and putting in practice all the major guidelines and instructions provided in these documents would indeed have been too difficult for all of us. If Sri Ganguly ji had not been here to grace this occasion with his presence and share his brilliant insights on the NCFs. You will be pleased to know that through his great expertise, respected Ganguly ji has covered all the important points of assessment and explained most of the things in 1.5 hours. In fact, Sir ne Gagar mein Sagar bhar diya. Let us offer huge thanks to Sri Ganguly ji. At Viva, we have been organizing webinars at frequent intervals to familiarize educators and learning facilitators with key areas of NEP and NCF. It goes without saying that the role of an eminent educationist like Sri Ganguly ji is pivotal to our endeavor. We also wish to bring this to your attention that we have followed this up by developing and revising our school books in keeping with the recommendations of NEP and the NCF. Let us humbly request all the school principals and coordinators who are part of the August audience to kindly take a look at our books whenever our sales executive visit your school and deliver the sample copies in near future. We have always valued your responses and suggestions, believing that you alone are the best judge to assess the quality of content we offer through our books. Let me conclude by thanking you all once again for being here. Your presence has been heartening, morale boosting, and encouraging beyond any measure. It strengthens us to continue with the kind of work we have been doing for a long time with a dynamic approach and vision. At last, thanks to Sri Vinod Vasishji, our Managing Director, for his wholehearted support and encouragement. Great thanks to Ms. Saloni for her all the support and help for the success of this webinar. And thanks to Ms. Dimple also. Thank you.